So here I am, Thursday night, during the summer, and I'm thinking, what can I do a video on? And I'm flipping through this book, Hockey News Greatest Rivalries, which was out 2 years ago. And I was reminded of something I did on April Fool's Day, where I stated that the Ottawa Senators were having a jersey retirement night for Alexei Yashin. Now, people stuck with that video till the end. And some were upset that I'd made it up and it was a joke. Ottawa fans, I think for the most part, get it. But part of what I forget, part of what I've been reminded of with getting emails from subscribers is that there's a lot of young people who may not really know the full story of what happened with Alexei Yashin in Ottawa and why the odds of any kind of rational resolution to the animosity between Yashin and the Senators just not going to happen. And I know people point to Pavel Bure in Vancouver. The animosity was between Bure and the ownership group. Or not ownership, the management group. It was never towards the fans in Vancouver, and there was never a hatred from fans of Vancouver towards Bure. Not really, not that I remember. I can't remember him getting booed when he came back. He was a dynamic forward, and Vancouver's management, while we loved Pat Quinn and we loved Brian Burke, they weren't always the nicest guys. They were kind of ornery sometimes, and these things just happen. Sometimes it's a bad mix. Yashin, on the other hand, let's get into the article on Yashin. Any group of angry fans can boo a villain, but it takes a special kind of hate to file a lawsuit against your hockey-playing anti-hero and burn him in effigy. They burned him in effigy. I don't think that's going to go in some kind of a video package for a jersey retirement. These are just some of the measures Ottawa Senators boosters took in expressing their contempt of one-time local fan favorite Alexei Yashin. At issue was, what else? Money. Many Senators fans viewed the gifted Russian as a greedy, lazy, me-first individual devoid of principle. The Yashin camp, conversely, said his holdout during the 99-2000 season was all about integrity. Do not compare him to Ovechkin. Ovechkin is a warrior. Yashin was not. Whatever the case, when Yashin threatened to withhold his playing services for the third time in 5 years despite being under contract, and the Senators called his bluff, public sentiment was squarely in the team's corner. The team favored ownership and management over the player. How often does this happen? Discuss. Everywhere you went,
I have no
it's
idea.
a Buzz Cola? What the heck?
I have no clue what that was. It did like this little firework thing on my phone.
You won.
I don't know what it was.
You won.
So weird.
Anyways, everywhere he went around town that year, people were talking about Yashin, said Jim Boone, former president of the defunct NHL Fans Association and an Ottawa resident. It's funny that it's a defunct NHL Fans Association. That's not going to last. And it didn't. It was a big deal here as the lockout was league-wide. There was so much anger towards this guy. This wasn't always the case. The first player ever drafted by the Senators, second overall in '92, Yashin mostly lived up to the buzz that surrounded his lofty status. While the team struggled year after year, Yashin grew and eventually blossomed into an NHL All-Star and a Hart Trophy runner-up in 1999. That same year, he finished tied with Jaromir Jagr and Tony Monty for second in the goal-scoring race with 44, just 3 behind league leader Timo Solani. And he was legitimately considered a fantastic player at the time. The problem was Alexander Daig, the club's first overall selection in the 93 draft. More precisely, it's the monster that Daig became, as created by the franchise and media that soured the scenario. Daig was a golden boy, a charismatic teen from nearby Quebec who was supposed to be the next big thing. Forecasting a potential for conflict, Yashin's agent, Mark Gandler, said he went to the Senators to renegotiate for the first time in order to protect his client's interests and was assured Yashin and Daig would be paid on par. This transpired before Daig's landmark 5-year, $12.5 million deal was inked, the largest pact ever for a first-year player. This is before entry-level contracts. The Daig contract is part of the reason why entry-level contracts were brought in, to protect GMs from themselves. This is what the NHL does. They say, wow, all these GMs signed really crappy contracts. We have to save ourselves from ourselves. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I don't want to say anything derogatory about the people involved, Gandler said, but when Daig's contract showed up, it was a 180-degree turnaround. We felt Alexei was slighted. As the seasons passed and it became clear Yashin was the superior player, bad blood simmered, and the Yashin camp went back to the trough a couple times looking to make good on what it says was promised. The problem was, by the time the third occasion arose, the Sens had gone through a chorus line of GMs that included Mel Bridgman, Randy Sexton, Pierre Gauthier, Rick Dudley, and finally in 99-2000, Marshall Johnston. That is a dog's breakfast of people. They may be absolutely great guys. None of them did anything for the Senators as GM. I was actually kind of surprised. Rick Dudley kind of surprised me at how many different jobs he'd had. He did very, very well as an assistant GM. Not so much as the guy in charge. Great as the second in charge, or you want him to scout, whatever. But as soon as he was in charge, it just didn't work for him. I didn't know anything about the first two renegotiations before I got here. Johnston said, "I'm old school in that if you sign the contract, you live with the contract and then you move on to the next one. You don't try halfway through the contract and say, oh, well, I didn't get enough or they lowballed me." And that's still true. For a player to say, I signed a contract, but since I signed it, you guys gave this guy amount of money and this guy got that amount of money, I want a brand new contract. You can't do that. That's just ridiculous. And I believe there were players back then who got contracts renegotiated, and that will cause chaos, and that does cause costs to spiral. Again, the NHL has to protect itself from its management. They have to. The spat became very bitter and very public. The Senators spiked the propaganda war by releasing the media a letter written to them by Gandler in which he stated their hardline position. Yashin validated it wasn't just the agent pulling strings when he told a reporter in the fall of '99, I can sit out 2 years if I have to. Owner Bryden's comeback, Alexei Yashin, that name doesn't even register with me. So ownership in Ottawa was like, yeah, screw this guy, we're done with his ego. Further fueling hard feelings was the way the Senators had been stunned in the '99 playoffs, being swept 4-0 in the first round by the underdog Sabres. Ottawa would finish second overall with 103 points, 12 more than Buffalo, and as the number 2 seed was supposed to roll over the number 7. We're supposed to roll over the number 7 seeds. It didn't happen. As number 2 seed, Alexei Yashin was captain. He was expected to lead the charge, failed to register a point. He had 24 shots on goal in 4 games, Dudley recalled. We happened to play against Dominik Hasek. If anybody else was in goal, Yash would have had 4 or 5 goals in those games. He played hard and he wanted it, and it would be different, or it would be difficult for someone to tell me anything different. Still, the local critics became more vocal. They looked at his less than efficient skating style and accused him of apathy, and there was some of that. So again, I'm doing this because this was so public. Yashin's image also took a severe pounding over a donation he'd made, then rescinded to Ottawa's National Arts Centre in 1998. Yashin pledged $1 million to the Hall over 5 years, and a proviso. What that stipulation was demands on who you believe. Media reports said he demanded his parents be put on the payroll for $425,000 for consulting fees. Gandler says the figure was $60,000 for his mother only and was for legitimate services rendered to secure high-level Russian performers, a task she was never allowed to complete. Alexei fulfilled the first year of his pledge, Gandler said, but nobody from Russia was invited to perform. We met with the conductor and people from the Arts Center, and there was no plan to invite the Russians. They reneged on their promise, and we felt the moral obligation was no longer there. Alexei had the right to pull the plug, and he did. It's called public relations. A big thing with whether you're a player, whether you're a GM or whatever, public relations is key. Look at a lot of the players we talk about and a lot of the players we don't like. And a lot of the time it's just their PR work is crap. And Yashin's was terrible. Just awful. $1 million to Alexei Yashin was not over a 5-year period. It's not that he wouldn't miss the money. It's great PR. Look what PK Subban did in Montreal. Gave tons of money to Children's Hospital. Great PR. Henrik Sedin in Vancouver, same thing. You buy yourself so much goodwill with the community when you're giving back. And Alexei went, I'm going to give back. They're not really giving my mother any work. They didn't hold their end of the contract. And whether he thought that or not, taking that money back, especially with how unpopular he was already at the time. More than anything, though, it was his decision to sit out an entire year that earned Yashin epic scorn. Things came to a head when an arbitrator ruled after the 99-2000 campaign ended. For Yashin, who'd spent much of the season practicing with the team in Switzerland, still had to honor the final year of his contract before being granted free agency. So he wanted to sit out and become a free agent. This is why players remain the property of teams that, after they go overseas, to avoid this. So a player can't say, well, all right, I'm going to go over to the KHL then. If they're already RFA or UFA, whatever, there's not much you can do about it, like I mentioned about Kuznetsov earlier in the summer. But Yashin, sitting out the last year of your contract when your team is supposed to be one of the best in the league, it's just crappy. The benefit for Ottawa was the year that he sat out, guys like Radek Bonk stepped up, and they got way, way better. And then they say here, at first the media conference, he returned to Ottawa that autumn, convinced he made the right decision and unwilling to show contrition. Whether you believe it or not, show contrition. Apologize. At his first media conference following his return to the Sens, he remained quietly defiant. The media expected Alexei to say, I'm sorry I made a mistake. I love my teammates. I love this town. But Alexei said how it was, Gandler recalled. He was there because the arbitrator compelled him to play. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone back. You going to cheer for a guy who says, yeah, I really don't want to be here, but I'm here because I have to be? Is that the guy you want to put a jersey on for? You want to throw roses at him when he gets a hat trick? You want to throw a hat at him when he gets the hat trick, but not in a nice way. It was a dreadful experience for the Russian, who was mercilessly booed by the hometown fans much of the season. One irate zealot launched a $27.5 million lawsuit against him, claiming breach of contract. It was eventually tossed out of court. Others burned him in effigy. You're going in the building and, hey, what's that? It's a fire. That fire is me. We knew that he was going to be under fire, Gandler said. I can tell you to play all year under those circumstances when your own fans boo you when you touch the puck and you score 40 goals. That's not easy. You have to be made out of iron. He went through a tough time, no question about it. Paradoxically, while the fans were taking out their anger, those in the organization have only fond memories of Yashin, the player and the person. I enjoyed Yash, Dudley said. I thought he was a good guy and a good person, and I thought he played hard for us. Says Johnston, I have nothing negative to say about him. He was a good guy. He wasn't any problem off the ice. He was a durable player. He was a good player. And Daniel Alfredson said he was a quiet person but a good teammate. He cared about his teammates, no question. There was a silver lining to the affair, maybe a couple. Johnson traded Yashin to the Islanders for Zdeno Chara, Bill McCult, and New York's second overall pick, which Ottawa spent on Jason Spezza. As for Yashin, he finally scored that mega deal, one-upping Dag and then some when he accepted $87.5 million over 10 years from the Islanders. And to this day, both camps remain steadfast in the approaches they took. I'm glad things turned out the way they did, Johnson said. I know I wouldn't have done anything differently, said Gandler. Had we known the results in advance, we'd do it again no matter what. That's why they'll never have a jersey retirement for Alexei Yashin. It doesn't matter how many years pass. The damage was done. Over and over and over and over. One of these incidents, you could argue, sure. All of them together, not going to happen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for all your support. I know people are going to tell me to go to bed. That's what people do when I post a video after 9 o'clock my time, after 12 o'clock Eastern. I apologize for that ding people are going to get from the notification, but I love you all, and I'll talk to you all again soon.